Second to last blot. Yeah, Chav Tesman base. We're still in the middle of Halacha base. No, I think we're actually we're in the middle of Gemara Chav Chalam Ramad Aleph. Itmar Rabbi Yochanan Amar Psuli Mamish.
We didn't finish all the Mishnah.
Yeah. Right. Itmar Rabbi Yochanan Amar Psuli Mamish. That's what we're up to. Rabbi Yochanan Amar Psuli Mamish. Shetir Chovam Mukdam. It's a few lines down on the page.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't have right. I have Itmar. You have Alzeh. Right. Okay. Alzeh Rabbi Yochanan Amar. Right. But it's double asters. Okay. So I have Itmar. You have Alzeh. Rabbi Yochanan Amar Psuli Mamish. Rabbi Yochanan says a star chov which is predated. In other words, I only actually borrowed the money on, let's say, Rosh Chodesh. What? No, I don't think it's Machlokes in the Bavli.
Yeah.
It is?
Absolutely.
I think the Bavli just parcels them outright. That's my recollection, that they're parceled outright. Yeah, I think that this is unique to the Yerushalmi. Bavli parcels out Rabbi Yochanan, but I don't think Rish Lakish argues in the Bavli. I don't have here in my cross references that there's a different it's brought down the Bavli this sugya. Sorry.
It is?
No, it's not. It's not. Okay, so Rabbi Yochanan's star chov psulim. In other words, the star was predated. Actually, the loan takes place next week, tomorrow, Rosh Chodesh Chesh, tonight, Rosh Chodesh Cheshvan, and you dated the star a week earlier, right, to Chav Gimel Tishrei. So Rabbi Yochanan says the whole star is thrown out the window. Rabbi Yerushalmi Shevi'is says the star is puzzle. Yeah. The lashon here is a little bit off. Anyway, the Shas Chesad means you'd only count from the time that's written, but that's not what it means here. Einamonim Shas Haksiva, from the time the time that it was signed, right? Which means that although the star is in Chav Gimel Tishrei, it's kosher only from Rosh Chodesh Cheshvan was actually written. Ask the Gemara, what about this brisa? The brisa says Pruzbul, and it sounds like unique unto Pruzbul. We have a special kula, bein mukdam bein meuchar, whether it's written early or late, kosher. Vein amonim l'shas ksab, but you only give it validity from the time it was actually written. If you Reish Lakish are going to say that applies to all stars, ma ben Pruzbul, ma ben star. So what's the difference between a Pruzbul and a regular star? In other words, why was Pruzbul singled out in this price? You should have said all stars. They're all good, even if they're predated from the actual date when they are signed. And there's no response. So that's probably why the Bavli doesn't bring it down, because Reish Lakish had no response to this price. Tanya, we learn. Shtar Shesmana Kosu B'Shabbos. This is brought in the Bavli, I think. Yeah, a shtar in Bo Basra. Shtar which is dated, and turns out that it was written on Shabbos. It's the date written in the shtar is Beis Cheshvan, Tavshin Nun Ches, which is Shabbos. Oh, Basra B'Tishrei. It's written Yud Tishrei, right? So what do you do with that such a shtar? Rabbi Yehuda Machshir, Rabbi Yehuda says it's kosher, Rabbi Yehuda Paisar, Rabbi Yehuda says it's possible. Rabbi Yehuda said, hey, Maisa bo v'nechad Tzipori, such a Maisa came in front of you in Tzipori, v'chsharti, you said it was okay. Amalos, he says, Rabbi Yehuda says, no, ani lo ichsharti, I didn't say it was kosher. If I did say it's kosher, ichsharti, then I'd say it's kosher for some other reason. But not because I hold that the shtar is actually kosher when it's written on a date, which is obviously a lie. So, the Gemara, in analyzing this question, say, they want to say, Mandamar Posel, he want to say it's no good, that's Rabbi Yossi, is because Mishum Uchar, because the loan must have been later and the star is predated, and that makes the star Posel, like Rabbi Yochanan said a moment ago. Mandamar Kosher, he who says that the star is okay in that case, where it's the dated for Yom Kippur, is Mishum Mukta, is because it must be that the loan actually took place earlier, right, and they post-dated the star. Says the Gemara, no, not true. Ella, here Ella is like, Ella means usually rather, but here it means no, but rather the reason is different. In other words, the Ella here is taking the place of several words which are not in the text. It should be low key elor, something like that. Elamandam our apostle, he who says that it's puzzle, doesn't know that it's puzzle because necessarily the star was predated, maybe the star was postdated. Rather mishum ziyuf, because the star looks like it's a forgery. Now, it might not be a forgery, it might be bona fide. But there's a concept mezuyef mitocho, which we learn at the beginning of Masechta Gittin. Any star which looks like it has elements which are incorrect or deceptive about it, such a star lights a red light by us, and we don't use the star. So that's what's going on here. He holds that it's not that we know that the star was predated, maybe the star was postdated, but it's mezuyef mitocho. It has an inherent flaw in it which bars us from accepting it. Okay, let's go back to the Mishnah. And Halacha Gimel Mishnah. Ein kosim prus b'karka. Do you see that? It's there. It's a long Mishnah. Okay. Okay. Ein kosim. By the way, sorry to do this to you, but Terumos is going to be the same. Same Gemara. Ein kosim prus b'karka. You only could write prus on land. If you don't have any land, so you the malveh, if the love has no land, the borrower has no land, you the malveh give him land. Not literally give him land, but you make your land available for him. What if the love had a field, but it was collateral to somebody else? It's good enough. We can use the right approval. If a man is the borrower and he has no property himself, but his wife has property, that's sufficient. And orphans, they don't have property themselves, but they're now him. If their guardians have property, that's sufficient as well. All right, let's go to the Gemara. Rav Amar. We're going to do this 2 more times in this Mishnah. Rav Amar, you see Rav Amar? Rav holds they both have to have property, both the malva and the lova. Now, the truth is that there's a little bit of sleight of hand the Gemara is pulling. The malva really doesn't have to have it. What the lova needs to have it in order that it should be considered as if Beis Din already collected the loan before Shemitah. Because Beis Din has rights of jurisdiction over all the property among the Jewish people. So therefore, if the lova has land, it's as if Beis Din already collected it before the Shemitah cancels the debts. But the malva is supposed to also have property in case the lova loses his property. So the malva is like a insurance policy on that. Okay. So the malva doesn't need it inherently. He only needs it as an insurance policy unless the lova has none. But that's what Rab means. So the sole purpose
for the malva have the property is just for the principal power.
Right. And it's a backup disk for the you're not on the computers. It's a backup for the lova. Okay. Rabbi Yochanan malva alpha b'shein loiv, and Rabbi Yochanan of course therefore says that it's either or. Either malva, even the lova doesn't have one, or the loiv alpha b'shein malva, or for the borrower, if even the malva doesn't have. Rabbi Abishem Rav said, somebody only owns a stalk within a field, within his field literally, but it means within a field. That's koisno prusbal, that's enough. Whereas when chazal or misakin, you have to have a piece of land. Any piece of land does. V'atani, why not? Wait a minute. How can you say this? Didn't we learn as shutfim v'arisim, partners and sharecroppers ain't prusbal. They can't have a prusbal because they don't own any land. But wait a minute. They do own portions in the crop, right? That so counts as a sharecropper. He's getting portions of the crop. So if a kelach echad is enough, it's enough to have one stalk. He's got stalks. What else does he need?
It's not growing in his land.
Well, the Gemara gives a slightly different variation. Not something like you're saying, slightly different. I mean, they said Tamon kol kelach v'kelach shutfusu. Each and every stalk is a partnership stalk. There's no stalk which is exclusively his. What? Yeah. There's no stalk which is exclusively his. But where you have one stalk which is exclusively yours, that's sufficient. What about if the apotropos has no property? The guardian has no property, but he's guardianing rich orphans. So it says, let's hear from our Mishnah. Constantly shall right for a man on his wife's property. So here too we can write for and a man on his wife's property is like a guardian. He doesn't really own his wife's property. He's a guardian. So you can write for an apotropos on the Yisomim's property. When can one write for a woman who borrowed money on the basis of her husband's property? We learn from Mishnah as well. You can write for Yisomim on the basis of property owned by their guardians, so that you can write for a wife on the basis of property owned by her husband.
One can distinguish apotropos from the other cases. By husband, he has at least a kinyan peiros. By apotropos, he doesn't have anything.
That's true. He doesn't have a kinyan peiros. But kinyan peiros, generally speaking, the old kinyan peiros is laf kinyan aguf. It's a control.
Okay.
So the Gemara, you're right. A chiluk could be made, but and I'm not disputing with you that one could be madche. But the Gemara felt for purposes of a din d'Rabbanan, the similarity is sufficient. Okay? All right, let's go back to the Mishnah. Kaveres devoirim, a beehive. Rabbi Eliezer America, this is a Mishnah also, well, not a Mishnah, but a sugi, it's a sugi in Bava Basra and in Shabbos in several places. A beehive. Rabbi Eliezer America, it's like land, like ground. Because it's a prusbul, you can use to write a prusbul. Vein makabel tumah kom, it's considered to be like ground. It's not makabel tumah when it's in its proper place. Shabbos, someone moves honey from a beehive on Shabbos, chayav, he's liable. We say it's not like land. And you can't write it in a prusbul. And it's makabel tumah where it is, because it's not considered to be connected to the ground. And therefore it's not connected to the ground. Shabbos, you move honey from it on Shabbos, you are potter, you are exempt. Let's go back to the Gemara. He said, time of the Rabbi Eliezer, what's the logic of Rabbi Eliezer? Dichsi, in other words, that holds that a beehive is connected to the ground. It says, say about where Shaul's army came through the forest, and they found that there was honey there. So we see a linkage drawn between forest and honey. What do you derive this pasuk? Forest, mafik dvash, produces honey. So we see that honey is connected, considered to be mechuber lakarka. It's considered to be connected to the ground. It says the army of Shaul and one of their wars against the Plishtim.
Wasn't that similar thing with Shimshon and the lion? Wasn't that lion coming out of the forest?
No, the lion was dead. It was in the jawbone. The honey was in the jawbone.
But that wasn't by a forest?
Could be. I don't remember. I shouldn't say with certainty.
The thing is, the honey combs are not going to be freestanding. They're going to have to attach to something.
Yeah, but whatever, even they're not. You're right. So even they're not attached directly to the ground. He's saying they're considered connected to the ground. That's their status. Okay. Says Gemara. Amar Mother said, "Mach, I would just say, sorry." Says more. You know what? Vilu Amar, we're Rabbi Avo and name Rabbi Shimon Lakish had to have said the next pasuk, or then it would have been even better proof, because it says V'it boloso bi'aras advash. That would be Yos. That would be a better pasuk. In other words, there it says that Yonasan took the edge of his staff. It's one of the Haftorahs, I forget which one, and dunked it in. Maybe it's not. I thought it was. Maybe it's not.
He wasn't supposed to.
Right, he wasn't supposed to. That's the whole Maisa there was Basi because he had taken an oath, right. But it says that he dicked his staff into the forest of honey. So it's not just a linkage. Honey is called a forest, right? That would be a much better drasha. And Rabbi Yossi Bar Bumashem Shimon Lakish Shomei is okay. He talked her the drush like that. Like Bolosa B'Yaras Advash. That we know that a honeycomb is called a mechuber lakarka because of this pasuk of Eid Bolosa B'Yaras Advash. Now says more. Let's talk tachlis here. But American, what are we talking about? If the honeycomb is connected to the honey, I should say the beehive is connected to the ground. Rabbanan also agree that it's like ground then. Even as if it's sitting on pegs, in other words, it's not connected to the ground, it's not like the ground. What did I talk about the following case? It's sitting on the ground, but it's not mechuber lakarka. On that, we have machlokas whether it's considered to have the status of mechuber lakarka or not, and whether we learn out of the pasuk there in Shmuel. Now, interestingly though, the Gemara gives a slightly different spin on it. V'asir ki hodam Rabbi Zira b'shem Rabbi Yirmiyah. It's going like Rabbi Yirmiyah. Zira said name Rabbi Yirmiyah. Kosim prusma makomo shel tanur. You can write a prusbul on the place where a oven is. The oven is not what you write it on. You write it on the land which is underneath the oven. Right? The oven takes up space. So you write on the space which is underneath the oven. So it says in the prusbul, we wrote it on the, well, it doesn't say anything in the prusbul, but prusbul might be written on the tanur, but the intent is to write it on the ground, which is the base of the oven, right? The Makom Shokir, you can write a prusbul on the base of a kira, which is a smaller type of oven. Rabbi Chia Barabba Amar Af Makom Shal. You can also write a prusbul on the place where a candle is on the ground. Now, there it's not clear already. The Kavanaki brings down what his logic is. It's because the candle is base and the base is sitting on the ground, or is because the candle is in an earthenware vessel. And earthenware is considered to be mechubar l'karka because the similarity of earthenware on the ground itself. Right. And then you could go back to Tanur and Kira and say that it's because it's the same material. And then he does say that. He says, going back, he says, it's possible to understand Tanur Kira based on one of the two reasons. Either based on the fact that it has land which is underneath it, or because it's made out of pottery and therefore it's similar to the land.
The Tanur can be moved.
What?
The Tanur's not permanent. It's temporary. It could be moved around. So if it's moved around, then the land that's underneath the Tanur...
But at the time the prusbul was written, that was good enough.
Even though it's not...
Right, even though it's not permanent. Because that was land. At that point it was land, and the larger in size of a stalk. Now, however, a beehive is not like that. A beehive, even if it's not you write it on the beehive itself, not on the land underneath the beehive. That's Rabbi Elazar's chiddush. That we're not talking about the land under the beehive. No. The beehive itself is considered to be a spot on the land. Okay, it's a big chiddush. By an oven, we're looking at the spot underneath it. Or we're saying that perhaps it's pottery itself, but the beehive can be wood. And it might not be in a designated spot. But if it's resting on the ground as opposed to resting on a tripod or something, that's considered to be karka. That's the special chiddush Rabbi Elazar. Okay? So, after pas came. So to by bread, do we say, well, it's actually a question. After pas came, do we say also by removing a piece of bread from an oven on Shabbos, which is called redia as well? There too we have machlokes Rabbi Elazar and Chachamim. Rabbi Elazar says it's prohibited, and your Chayim and Chachamim say it's mutter. So it's in the Gemara, no. Lo. Devash gidulei kaveris. Honey grows out of the honeycomb. Pas ena gidulei atanur. The bread does not grow out of the side of the oven. So therefore to remove bread from an oven on Shabbos is not this deraisa of kotzer or whatever, whereas to remove honey from a honeycomb is this the rice of kotzer according to Rabbi Elazar. Okay? Let's go back to the Mishnah. Hamachzor Chol b'Shvi'is. Somebody gives back a loan, he's during Shemitah. In other words, it's literally, it's not really Shemitah. When is this taking place? The year after Shemitah. Year after, because Shemitah is Mishamit B'Sofa, right? So he gives back a loan. Yomer lo Mishamit ani. So the lender should say to the borrower, I'm Mishamited. In other words, you don't have to give it back to me. Omer lo Afa B'Chein. If then, however, the borrower says, nonetheless, I want to give it to you, Yikav Mimenu. Then the lender is allowed to accept it. Shneimar says, V'zed var Shemitah, as long as he stated that he's fulfilling the practice of canceling the loan, that's sufficient, and then he's allowed to accept it afterwards. He has to pay lip service to the concept of Shemitah, and that's enough. Kayetzo similarly, a murderer who went to a city of refuge. The people see they want to be mechabed him because he's big time chochem or something. You should say, you can't be mechabed me, I'm a murderer. And they said, nonetheless, you want to murder him. Yikabel me. That then he's allowed to mekabel. Shneimar zed var rotzeach. He has to say, I'm a rotzeach. That's enough. Now says the Gemara, Omer Mishamid ani. If he says Mishamid, I'm Mishamid, that's sufficient. Rabuna Amar is an amazing Gemara. I think it's in the Bavli too. No, it's not in the Bavli. Rabuna Amar b'sofa rafa. Va'yomi pshuta l'kabel. He said in a small voice. He says, well, I'm sure. He says, and he extends his hand. He says, I am Mishamet. But he's standing there ready to accept the money in his hand. Okay? I guess a hollow voice would be more proper. A hollow voice with his right hand extended to get back his loan. Okay, Rotzeach Shenin Nikol V'chulei. Rabbi Yasser said, Hada Amara, this teaches us. Now, this is a fascinating thing here, not so much for the concept itself, which appears in the Pavli, but for something else. Amar Barnash, the Tani Chada Mechla. This teaches us, Barnash, the Tani Chada Mechla, an individual learned one Masechta. Now, I never thought about this before. Where does the word Masechtas come from? Pouring, something poured. Nesech. No. Like Nesachim. Maseches is like something which is Nesachim, right? Like something which is poured. Yeah. And here, Masechta is called a mechla, a container. So I was wondering about that today. Maybe there's a difference in Bavli because it calls them Masechta, things which are poured. It's a container which is poured, but it's a pouring container. Whereas Yerushalmi doesn't call them Masechta, it calls it a mechla, a mechal being a container. I was wondering, I didn't come up with anything exciting. But I was wondering maybe, there's a difference in the etymology that in one Yerushalmi Bavli is called something which is poured, and in the Yerushalmi it's called something which contains. But mechla means Masechta, okay? And Masechta, be that as it may, Bavli Yerushalmi, it means a container which contains something which is pourable. That's what the Lashon of Masechta means. Yeah, that would be a question to ask him. That's true. Yeah. So, Hadam Rabbarnash the Tani Chada Mechli, he learned one Masechta, who was in Lasar, and they go to a place, Vina Mokrele, they give him covered, begin tighten, because they think he learned two Masechtas. Tzarech Loi, Meimar Loi, he's got to tell them, Ana Chada Mechlo, Ana Chachim. I only know one Masechta. Don't give me covered as if I know two. There was a rumor about me once, when I was in Bacher in the Mir, New York, when I was 1984. So one of the kids and one of the seniors in high school came up to me and said, is it true that you learned all of Shas except for one blot, so you couldn't say that you learned all of Shas? So I said, first of all, it's not true. Secondly, anybody knows me knows it's completely out of character for me to do such a humble thing and not to learn one blot, just in order that I would be humble and say I didn't learn through Shas. All right, but anyway, you have to tell people they have the misconception about you what the real story is. Okay, halacha dalet. Somebody who returns alone with Shemitah canceled, the Chachamim look with approbation on such a deed. They approve of it. Somebody borrows money for ger, she's Karabanav Imo, whose children convert with him. If the ger drops dead, he doesn't have to give the money back to the kids because the kids are not his heirs. Midoraisa, right? But he did give it back. Chachamim are pleased with him. All objects are acquired by pulling them. Anybody who keeps his word, Chachamim are happy with him. Now those two statements are in juxtaposition. The Gemara is going to discuss that. The famous case of somebody who gave money, but then he had to Mashiach and he wants to renege. What's his status? Okay, that's what the Gemara is going to lead into. Rabbi Lezer says you should only give it back to his kids, to his sons. Now, Rabbi Yassi said, here boy is said, not asked the question, said, don't understand it literally. It doesn't mean that you only give it back to his sons and not to his cousins or whatever. Rather, it means, if he has sons, you should give it back specifically to the sons, and only only if he has no sons, then yachsir. I meant it wrong. Sorry. Let me do that again. Don't It's a kasha. What does he mean to say? That if he has sons, you give it to his sons. If he doesn't have sons, you give it to his daughters? No, that's not what he means. Rather, what Rabbi Eliezer mean to say? Shelo tomar ho ve'en yusha sager dvar Torah. That you shouldn't say that since the Yerusha Sager doesn't exist me the rights, but rather it's a nice gesture. You might say that you only give to you can give even to his daughters. In other words, I might say that normally daughters don't get anything, but here this is not a Doraisa Yerusha anyway. Doraisa, his boy shouldn't get anything anyway, right? So I might say here I'll be a feminist. And I'll give also the daughters, right? That's why Rabbi Eliezer is saying, no, Yachzir Lupanov. You give specifically to the sons. And you only give to the daughters if there are no sons. Okay? So even here, where it's not a Yerusha Doraisa, you maintain the parameters of Yerusha Doraisa, which state that the first recipient of Yerusha is a son. And only if there is no son, then you give to a daughter. Okay? Tani, Kayetz, but we learned similarly. So this is a very interesting halacha. Misha Meisov Mishpachto, a Jew, JFB, a Jew from birth. So he's got relatives, but all of his immediate family died, except for his wife, his mother. Vilna Yerushalmi, and he only has one heir, which is his mother. Now, normally, do mothers inherit their sons? No, because it goes by the shevet of the father. So therefore, a mother will never, according to Allah, inherit her son. It's an impossibility. But here you can't find any close relatives. Of course, everybody's got relatives, right? Go back to Yaakov Avinu, any Jew's got relatives. But here you can't find the relatives. You can't find they're not locatable. So in that case, lo yachzir. You don't have to give it back to the mother, of course, right? Because it's not coming to her. But if you give it back to the mother, Chazal are happy with you. Okay? Now we turn the tables. Hagazan shasa tshuva, a thief who does tshuva, ubikesh la'achzir sagzela, and he wants to give back the theft. Hamakavim somebody who accepts the property from him. Ein ruach chachamim nochei menu. Chachamim are not pleased with the people who want their property back. Why is that? Why would you say that's the case? Because if he owes so much money, he's not going to do proper tshuva. So therefore, in order to make sure he does properly, he as an incentive to get him to do tshuva, we don't accept back the money which he offers. Not if he owes too much. That's by not a professional thief. It's by an amateur. But a professional, you make him Gaza, forget it, ain't going to be no tshuva, right? So therefore, by an amateur, we say you take it back. By a professional, it's supposed to be Michael. What?
He's only doing a token return, he's not returning.
No, he wants to return the whole thing, but you're not supposed to take it from him. Because that'll bankrupt him and he won't do proper tshuva. He'll go and steal again in order to pay back all the debts he incurred. Just be Michael. Let him keep the money. I'm not making this up. That's what it says here. Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's Gemara and Sukkah. It is. Yeah. Okay. I don't know. Do you have that header? Or just goes Rabbi Chia Rabbi Chia. Okay, I have Rabbi Chia Barva. Do you have Barva? Yeah, but it makes more sense to say Rabbi Chia Barva because Rabbi Chia the Great, Rabbi Chia Ruba, as he's called in the Yerushalmi, was Rabbi Yochanan's uncle. And he was older, so Rabbi Chia wouldn't be saying things the name Rabbi Yochanan. So Rabbi Chia Barva named Rabbi Yochanan. Had noisei v'noisim dvarim. Somebody who buys and sells verbally without making kinyanim. Sometimes you just say Chachamim are not pleased with him because he abuses the trade. But and sometimes they just say you don't give him over to anything else except for Mishapara. Do you remember what Mishapara is? What's a Mishapara? Invoke it, not revoke it, invoke it.
No, revoke when I sick the sneeze again.
Oh, the smicha. If I give you money for something, so most konos midaraisa, not midrabana. I give you money for something, and then renege on the deal and ask for money back. You have to give me my money back. But you can go to shul and give me the curse of mishapara. Okay, that's the curse. Chachamim, in order to try and make sure people don't renege on money they gave, so they institute a curse for anybody that does renege. Okay? So sometimes, if you're buying and selling with verbally, so sometimes you don't get a mishapara because money has to exchange hands in order for mishapara to be instituted. That's the time you get a mishapara. Rabbi Avo B'Shem Yochanan said, however, there are exceptions to that rule. Let's say you gave a down payment not of money, but you gave a down payment. It's not really a down payment; it's a security deposit of tabas of a ring l'chavero. Now you want to renege on the whole deal. You can renege and you don't get a mishapara. So it says the Gemara, why? But Rabbi Zira asked for Ravo. Amalei tabas. What's it? Why does it get a mishapara? Amalei tabas. They said because it's a ring. What's if it's I give a down payment of a gold piece or the down payment of a ring? Zov darkol ishtanos, because normally the guy who gets the payment of the gold piece is going to go and spend it and use it. So therefore, that's much more of a definitive, transaction. Whereas tabas beinoi, a ring, it's not being given to the seller as a bona fide down payment, it's just as a security deposit of some sort. So therefore, mishapara applies to bona fide legitimate down payments, which can be spent by the seller. They do not apply to security deposits, which the seller is not likely to spend. Okay, Rabbi Yaakov Bar Zavdi and Rav Obasher and Yochanan said, they both said, Omar lite maton chavero. If someone wanted to said he's going to give a gift to his friend, and then he decides he wants to renege on the deal, he's allowed to renege. Come Rabbi Yasim, Rabbi Yaakov Bar Zavdi, so Rabbi Yasim got caught up to Rabbi Yaakov Zavdi, and he said to him, wait a minute, Ahein Lav Tzedek, that's not just, and it says V'in Tzedek. Chazal Darshan in Ksuvas Peva, it says in Kiteitze, Hein Tzedek, Eifas Tzedek. And Chazal Darshan that Sheyeh Hein Shochat Tzedek, V'Sheyeh Lav Shochat Tzedek. When you say yes, you must keep your word, and when you say no, you must keep your word. So where's the keeping his word here? We're letting him renege on the deal. He says he's going to give a gift, and we're letting him renege. He said that's different. When he promised to give it tzedek, he thought he was going to give it. He thought that was tzedek. Meaning, what he means to say is that a matana doesn't have that same parameter. Where it's an obligation, so then I say you have to abide by original obligation. But by a gift, a gift is a gift. It's different. It's a lower level of, of transaction. So therefore, a person can renege on a gift even after he verbally declared he's going to give it. As long as there's no kinyan involved, he can still renege. Again, there's no mishapara either. Okay? Rav Polik. Rav argues. Rav says you got to keep your word. Rav Amar Karana Amar Libnei Beisi. When I say to the members of my household, they should give a gift on my behalf to a certain individual. I never renege. Now, the Gemara understands this very interestingly. The Gemara understands that this works because of Mamach Loishta. Mamach Loishta means, let's say I give you an object to safekeep. And I say to you that be marked that object to Rav Meir. You have to give it to him. And that's a kinyan. Midrabanan. Midaraisa, that doesn't work. Because you have to do Mashiach, you have to do Agbah, you have to do Kinimos. Midrabanan, just the fact that I told you to give it to him in automatically makes it his.
Yeah, but
but you didn't do anything. You went for being my safekeeping. You don't have to. You already had in your possession for safekeeping. So you go from being my agent for safekeeping to his agent for safekeeping. That's called Mamach Loishta. That Gemara doesn't know that yet. Gemara doesn't know that yet. We're going to get to that in a moment, that the ultimate to be present. We don't know yet. Okay, so says the Gemara. So the Gemara understands that Rav holds this is Ma'amad Shloishtan, even though all three are not present. And the Gemara says, Masdisa Pliga the Rav. Alay the Rav. So fine, Brisa argues the Rav. The Tani, we learned the Brisa. Ema Sayom Ram Metalti Nikni Mashiach. When can a person acquire movable objects by pulling them, B'Rishus Rav in a public domain, or B'Chater Cherishos name, or a koya which doesn't belong to either of them? B'Rishus Hamocha, however, if the object is in the seller's domain, Lokana, the buyer is not acquired, until he lifts it up, or until he pulls it and takes it out. We are at Yotzi's Kula, it takes up the entire thing, B'Rishus Bailim, from the domain of the owner who has it now. B'Rishus Lokeach, if this transaction is taking place in the buyer's domain, once the Moicher accepts upon himself that the transaction should go through, the transaction goes through automatically. Because what acquires the object for the Lokeach in that case? What acquires the object for the buyer in that case? It's in the buyer's backyard. What acquires it for Kinyan Chotzer, right? Because it's in the buyer's Chotzer. Okay? B'Shuzah now comes to what we're really looking for. B'Shuzah Shumuf Gadim Etzel, if I gave in the book for safekeeping, Lo Konach is Kenu Bahen, you don't acquire it until it gets to your hand. Or Chiaskelos Makoman, until you rent to him the place where the book is, which is Kinyan Chotzer. So Ma'avad La Rav. So what's Rav do with this? We see Ma'amad Shloshtan only works if all three are present. Says Mar Kam Shemido Etzlo. Rav so play about a case where all three are present. Then Ma'amad Shloshtan works. Khan, the bright story about a case where not all three are present, are you and him. And therefore Ma'amad Shloshtan doesn't work. That's why you need to have a Kinyan Chotzer, a Kinyan money, not Kinyan money, a Kinyan Chotzer, Kinyan Mashiach, whatever the case may be. Okay, that's one lashon. Now we have another lashon what Rav said. I think it's time to go make the Siyum. Do you have the stuff here? So let's set up downstairs. Oh, we can do it here. Alright, we're in the last Gemara in Masechta Shevi'is. Rav Polik. Rav argues there was a premise stated in the Gemara, which is that if I promise to give a gift, I can renege on it. I don't have to keep my word. All right? And we had one version which Rav argued one way. And now we're going to have a Lishna Achrin, another way in which Rav seems to argue on that. The Rav said, when I say the members of my household, that they should give a gift to a certain individual, I never renege on the deal. So, Chad Barnash, so what happened was that once an individual, Afkid a Ravon, he gave, a Ravon is not really a down payment, it's like a security deposit. Whereas you're going to buy something, so you leave like a token of a down payment. It's a token. It's not the actual down payment. You leave a ring or a watch or something like that. That's called an Ravon. Like Yehuda gave to Tamar a Ravon until his staff and whatever else what he gave a Chosem is Fabsilim until he actually was going to pay her. So Chad Barnash Afkid Ravon al Milcha, a certain individual gave a security deposit on salt. Visyakris. In the meantime, the price of salt went up. Asala Gabi Rav. So they came in front of Rav to find out what to do. V'amar lein, Rav said to him, O yitain lo kol eravono, either he gives him salt. The seller has to give him salt, which corresponds to the value of the eravon. Say the eravon was worth 50% of the price of the salt, right? So it's given salt which corresponds to whatever the value of the eravon is, not the full value of salt. Or if the seller of salt wants to renege on the whole deal, so he's got to accept upon himself that quaint curse which we give all people who renege on deals in shul, mishapara midara mabul yifram mishaino omed b'diburo, which is the curse you give to somebody who doesn't abide by doesn't follow through in a contract when he got money on it. So michlafa shita seder Rav. So this is this literally exchanges the opinion of Rav. That means a contradiction to Rav. Tamanu Amar, over there he said, when I say to the members of my household to give a gift to somebody, I never renege on the deal. V'kanu amaro chein. And here he says that you can renege on the deal, right? Not on the entire deal, but at least on that which is above and beyond the value of the Eiravon. Right, you only have to give the 50%, which corresponds to the value of the Eiravon. How can you renege on the rest of the deal? So it's more, the difference is very simple. Taman lamida sadinhu. What Rab Paskin in that case of the salt is the strict letter of the law, right? That you only have to deliver on the value of what the Eiravon was, which is given. You don't have to deliver on the full value which you promised the guy. That's according to the strict letter of the law. The Rav Noig, that which Rav, however, would not renege even on a gift once he promised to give it, much less on this kind of transaction where it was a monetary transaction. The midas chasidus, that's not midas sadin, but that's the midas chasidus which Rav manifested. Now we'll say the Hadron.
Not today.
It is. It's easy. Chamisha lo yitramu. 5 people should trumas. We're starting, for those of you who are listening on tape, we're starting trumas. I'll come out. Chamisha lo yitramu. 5 should not take off truma. Being tormu, if they did take off truma, ain't truma so truma. The truma is not a valid truma. Who are these? A cheresh, person who's deaf mute. A shoiter, a person who's an imbecile. A kotan, a child. Hatori mesher shlo, somebody takes truma off that which is not his. Nachli shatarim shel Yisrael, because later in the sect we'll see if a guy takes truma of his own stuff, it works. He's rabbanan. A guy can take a truma off his own stuff and give it as truma to a kohen, but a guy cannot take truma off of Yisrael stuff even with permission. Okay, and we're going to learn that from a pasuk. Rabbi Shmuel says the Gemara. Going to the Gemara now. Told you the same thing. Shmuel by Nachman Shama lekulun minacha. He learned all of these halachas from the following pasuk. Now this is just an asmachta, because this is talking not about truma of grain, but about the truma they gave in order to build the Beis Hamikdash, right? But he learned from here. Truma they should take from me truma. So it says Bnei Yisrael prat legoy excludes a goy. Meis kolish from all men prat lekotan excludes minors. Asher yidvenu libo, whose heart gives a voluntary donation. Well, heart implies that you can think about it, right? Prat lechesh that excludes a deaf mute and an imbecile who are considered not to have das. V'zos truma asher tiku me'el ito. This is the truma you should take from them. Prat letorei meshen shlo. This excludes somebody who's torn that which does not belong to them. Ask the Gemara by Ketanim, or Cheresh Shoyt v'Koden, all 3 of them. Why don't we say that their Maisa proves what their Machshava is? Because that which kind don't have a Maisa, it's not can't do things. It's not universal. If it's a type of Maisa which indicates what their das is, then they have das. With das which is ambiguous, they don't have. But das which is unambiguous, where the deed proves what the das is, that kind of das Kohen does have. It's like, right. So why don't they have once they're taking off truma, isn't it obvious what they're doing? So it should be considered to be that they do have das in this case. Okay? The Tanina Tamon, we learned over there, Halum. If a Cheresh Shoyt took up grain, or it's actually fruit. Sorry, it took up fruit to a roof in order to dry. In order that they should get wet. They should get wet, and what happens when fruit gets wet? It's machshul kabatuma, right? So helen chesh v'kotan aval b'shechish v'shered leim aleim tau. So the truth is, in that case, even though their intent was they should get moist with dew, and it's not considered to be makabel tuma. Why? Because ketanim have a maisa but not a machshava, and here it's not unambiguous. It is ambiguous. Why is it ambiguous? Because they might have other reasons for taking up to the roof. What might be reason taking up to the roof? In order to dry it, in order to store it. So therefore, it's not unambiguous, and therefore they don't have a maisa.
So they know what they're doing, but they don't know why they're doing it.
They might even know why they're doing it, but it does us no good. They might know what they're doing and why they're doing it, but unless it's a maisa which is unambiguous, we don't care. What is Ezu Maisa Shlem? What is a Maisa by them? Rabbi Yechuna said, "Betafos b'hem betal." If a cotton holds up the fruit to the dew, right? That indicates that he wants to get wet. In that case, it's unambiguous. We also learned over there the following. If a cotton took a cow down to water in order to rinse its feet, and there are fruits in the water, so then we say the fruit is royal kabel tuma. Why? Because then we know the principle is it doesn't have to be that you want the water to come onto the fruit, but rather the water is beneficial to you in some way. That's sufficient in order to be machshir kabel tuma. So they took the cow down to the water, even though they thought to do it in order to rinse its feet. It's not. It doesn't constitute. It's not machshir kabel tuma. Why? Because it's not unambiguous. Because maybe the reason why they want it's not considered to be actual ratzon. I guess maybe they don't. It's not clear why they're leading the cows down to water. Maybe they're just leading down to water because that's the direction which they want to walk, but not that they want the cows to wash their feet. Ezu Ma'aseh what's unambiguous? When he takes the cow's leg and starts, washing it in the water, rubbing the water. So says the Gemara, let's say also Avhacha here too. Let their deed indicate where their machshav is, and let's say the truma is valid truma. Says, well, you know what? Hypothetically, you're right. But Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Avo, Shem, Rabbi Yochanan, and Rabbi Zir, B'Shem Rabban, and all said, "V'nechshav lochem trumaschem." It says by truma, it's considered to you. V'nechshav eshekasu b'machshava. When it's because it says consideration, thought, ein ma'aser shlo mochiach hamachshavto. You don't say this principle of ma'aser mochiach hamachshava. When do I say that? When the primary thrust of the ma'aser is the deed itself. Just say you need kavanah on the deed. So then it cotton, as long as the deed is unambiguous, that's considered to be sufficient. But where the primary thrust of the deed is the thought, that a cotton doesn't have. And therefore, in this case, even though it's an unambiguous ma'aser, it doesn't help. The machshava here is because you need to have machshava as the primary focus, and they have a lack of machshava. Says the Gemara, "V'eshe kasaba machshava." Only where it doesn't say the word machshava in the Torah, there ma'aser shlo mechiach machshavto. There, the ma'aser which is unambiguous is sufficient. But here, even an unambiguous ma'aser is insufficient. Rabbi Yossi said, Kushiyai asked the Shiloh, Kumi Rabbi Shmuel in front of Shmuel, based on what he just said. By Gittin, it doesn't say that you have to have thoughts. It doesn't say v'nechshav lochem gitchem. Ve'ma'aser shlo mechiach machshavto. Yet there we say that the ma'aser doesn't prove the machshava. Why not? The thing that's on where you see that says Hakol kshein lichtov is again. It says anybody can write again. Even a deaf mute, an imbecile, and a child. It's only if a person who is an adult, sane individual standing over them. Why? Let the mice of writing again, which is unambiguous, be enough to prove that they had machshava. Right? So Rabbi Yochanan said, Rabbi Yochanan said the reason why it doesn't work, boy, he stated, he said the reason why it doesn't work because it's not written properly lishma. So why not? Record the machshava works because ma'aser mochiach machshavto. Says more very interesting answer. Hada Rabbi Yossi responded to his own question. He said, "Tamon ze kosev v'zeh megarish." Writing is not indicative because writing is not the true ma'aser. What's the true ma'aser? Giving it. So he's just writing it. He's not being megarish with it. So it's not mochiach anything. It has to be written lishma. And this is not written lishma necessarily because lishma means that it has to be with an unambiguous intent to be megarish. Yes, to give it might indicate an unambiguous intent to be megarish, but not writing it. He might just be writing it as an exercise in penmanship. We don't have any proof of Lishma in his writing it. Okay? By us, however, he's taking the Truma, and he has the Machshava, meaning that they're both in the same act, right? So therefore, if not for the pasuk of Nechshavlechem Trumaschem, which excludes the cotton, I would say cotton is cotton Ma'isa Machshavtum, that would be sufficient. Rabbi Yaakov Acha said the same thing, a slightly different version. Rabbi Yaakov Acha Amar Ha'ilu Kosav Hu V'Girei Shu. Were he to be the one who's writing, the one who's Megaresh Gedu, would have been valid. But it's not. That's not true. However, in our case over here, he is the one who has the Machshava, he is the one who takes Truma, and that's why it's valid. Okay? Wasn't that a nice, easy Omen? Much easier than Shevi'is, right? HaCheresh. Do you have a Cheresh? Okay, no hero, right? You have Rabbi Yaakov Baracha? Rabbi Yaakov Baracha and Rabbi Chia Barva, B'Shem Rabbi Yochanan, both said Rabbi Yochanan, both said name Rabbi Yochanan, that Chalukim al Shona Hazo. There are those who argue on this Mishnah. Shona here means Mishnah. Malkidon. What now? In other words, where do we find that? I see the Rabbi Yochanan, the Terumos, so Rabbi Yochanan here who said that those who argue on our Mishnah Terumos, he's making reference, Rabbi Shmuel, B'nosh Rabbi Yochanan Broka, the Kiddushin. To that which Rabbi Shmuel, the son of Rabbi Yochanan Broka, said, by Kiddushin. Now this Kiddushin is not Kiddushin of marriage, but rather Kiddushin of Mechatos. Sanctifying the Paraduma waters. With Rabbi Yochanan the Gittin, there's Rabbi Yochanan, which we'll see later on, who says by Gittin there's a Machlokas, Asik Rabbanan, the Kiddushin, he's making reference to the sheet of Rabbanan by Kiddushin Mechatos. What case it's all about? The time we learned, Cheresh Shoyte V'Kotan. A child, a deaf mute, an imbecile and a child, Shakichu, they poured the Paraduma waters, which has to be done with Lishma. So there, it's got, if they did it, ain't Kiddushin Kiddushin. It's not valid. Right? So that's like our Mishnah. Rabbi Shmuel ben Rabbi Yochanan Miracle argues, and by inference says Rabbi Yochanan, he argues in our Mishnah. Shmuel ben Rabbi Yochanan Miracle Omer Beinon Levein Atzmon. If they do it themselves privately, ain't Kiddushin Kiddushin is not valid. Beinon Levein, but if there are others are standing there, which is the concept of Gadol Oimin Al Gabam, an adult standing over them. So the das of the Gadol works, Kiddushin, then the Kiddushin Mechatos is valid. And so too, Rabbi Shmuel, the son of Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka, Mistama would say by Truma also, if a Gadol was standing over them, then the Truma would be a valid Truma. Okay, so we argue in our Mishnah. Tanim, now we're talking about, let's talk about get. Cheresh, Shetoram, a Cheresh who took off Truma, and I don't know if you have the next words. Osha Giresh, do you have those words? Okay, so Osha Giresh, or he gave a get, Engito get. Right, definitely gave a get, it's not a valid get. Vein Trumas or Truma, and his Truma is not a good Truma. When is that true? When it's Cheresh from birth. If he was a normal person, he's Charesh, and now he became deaf mute. Kosev, he can write a get. And other people look at his Ksav Yodo, and they see that he knows how to write, and he is lucid, so he can give a get. In those circumstances, gave a get. Now, do you have Shomei Ve'enu Medaber? Somebody can hear and cannot speak Zo Elam. That's called a mute person. What? Rei Pikech? Oh, well, here it's a slightly different gear, but same idea. Shomei Ve'enu Medaber, somebody can hear but cannot speak Zo Elam is mute. Medaber Ve'enu Shomei, somebody who could speak and cannot hear Zo Cheresh is deaf. Zev is Arei Pikchim. They're both considered to be lucid. Rabbi Yaakov bar Acha. Rabbi Yaakov bar Acha said, Rabbi Chia bar Avan, Rabbi Chia bar Acha named Rabbi Shir Yochanan, Chalukin ala Shoyne Hazos. They argue on this Mishnah. Who argues on this Mishnah? So here it says, Rabbi Shin Gamliel says that Rabbi Shin Gamliel says that you have a case where a person is a Cheresh, right, who can give a get, right? Our Mishnah holds not that way. Our Mishnah doesn't draw any distinctions, right? Our Mishnah says that a Cheresh can't take off Truma, no matter what the case may be. Amrei, so Amrei, they said, V'hamas Nisa Pliga. The following Brisa also argues. You know what? We'll have to stop here because it's already after 10:05, but we did almost the plot. So
Actually, I miscalculated.